Hey guys, we were assigned a synopsis of all the lessons 1 through 6. So first off, we will start with Tom on I forgot what he
Concepts, categories, and comparisons. Concepts, categories, and comparisons deal with how children categorize all information in the brain. It begins as a concept, which is the basic unit of thought. They may be divided into categories, which organize concepts, and then comparisons, which find similarities and differences with concepts. The key thing for brain research has shown is that a child's ability to categorize and compare becomes much more sophisticated with time and experience. For example, a child's concept of math may change with experience. It may start simply as memorizing how numbers add together, later becoming a slightly more complex equation, and finally, by the time they're in high school, a very theoretical equation. Go.
Statistical learning is our ability to notice patterns. We can figure out what the statistical probability of certain things happening. This happens unconsciously. An example is when a child encounters the word phone and makes the P sound instead of the F sound. Conditioning is when learning happens when an association is formed between two stimuli, a consequence and a response, and other things similar to what they were initially conditioned. Two types of conditioning are classical and operant. An example of classical is conditioning a dog to salivate at the ring of a bell. An example of operant is using positive reinforcement by giving your dog a treat for doing something good.
The brain is constantly changing, building new synapses and pruning old ones in response to changes in the environment. Many things can alter the brain and the way it functions, and these changes fall into three categories: anatomical, metabolic, and neurochemical changes. Anatomical change is any physical change that happens to the brain. This can be like a concussion or simple growth from childhood to adulthood. Neurochemical changes are changes in the amount or transmission of a chemical in the brain. A neurochemical change can look like the use of antidepressants or other drugs. A metabolic change is a change in the rate of brain activity. Things like adrenaline, which cause the brain to work at a faster rate. Each of these three categories has two different kinds of changes within them, or two different types: adaptive and maladaptive. An adaptive change is helpful to the brain, whereas a maladaptive is something that's not helpful. These different categories are not clear-cut or exclusive. Caffeine, for instance, can be adaptive for one person if it makes them feel more energetic and focused, but can be maladaptive to someone else if it gives them the jitters or makes them anxious.
Analogies. Analogies, well, are like a ladder in that you have a base, which is what you already know, and a target, which is what is to be learned. Through analogical mapping, you may project inferences, or the rungs of the ladder, to connect the base to the target. Now, there are different types of analogies. You have simple analogies, which are just X is like Y, or enriched analogies, which are X is like Y because, with an explanation behind it. Extended analogies are a mix of simple and enriched analogies. And the higher level of thinking is required as analogies get more and more complex. An example of an analogy in the classroom would be relating the structure of an atom to the universe, in that you have a center and objects rotating around it.